Hey there everybody, it's Melanie with Lost and Found, and I am working on this piece of furniture out here in my garage and thought I'd pop in for just a quick live to talk with you guys about a little bit of the design elements when it comes to your painted furniture. I get a lot of questions from people that say, how did you know what color to paint that? Or how did you know the paint colors that you wanted to combine? And so I do think when you're painting furniture, there's a lot of freedom in how you want to do it. And your style, the colors that you like, the things that you enjoy. I think there's a lot of freedom in that. But then there's also just kind of some basic artistic principles, I guess you could say, that go into just kind of the design of a piece. Thinking through the color that fits with the type of piece it is, whether it's a modern piece or a more elegant piece or a classic piece, the scale of the piece, how big it is. And if you're going to combine any sort of colors, just kind of thinking through that. So I don't want to like stifle anybody's creativity, but I do want to talk a little bit about just painting in a way that makes sense, in a way that makes sense with the style of the furniture, in a way that's going to make sense, especially if you're selling pieces, in a way that's going to make sense to kind of a broad audience. And so I'm going to talk through this piece a little bit. I'm here outside the Dallas, Texas area, and as always, and would love to hear if you're watching, just a quick comment of where you're watching from and maybe what you're working on today. So, okay, so this piece, I know that you can't see a whole lot of it in this shot, but it's a desk, and it was in decent shape when I found it. It's a fantastic example of the kind of piece you want that's a great candidate to paint because it's sturdy. It is super solid. It's a great piece of furniture. It just had seen better days, okay? The top was pretty beaten up. There's some places of chipped out veneer here in the front, which no, I did not fill in because those things don't bother me so much. I'm gonna have this kind of have a distressed look to it. There was just scratches, dings, there's a little tiny piece of trim missing. So it just needed a little bit of love. Now, this piece, what it did have was absolutely gorgeous wood pattern. Can you guys see that? I want to hear oohs and ahs, okay? This gorgeous wood pattern, what I call a burled wood pattern here on the drawer fronts. It also had it on these little spaces right here. And then this is a fully finished desk, and so the back of it is finished out, and the back panels were this same beautiful patterned wood. Now, I wrote a post on my blog a while back called Burled Wood and Why You Don't Want to Paint It. And if you haven't read that post, I'll put it in the comments here when I'm done. But the point of it is that this kind of patterned wood veneer is getting more and more rare, and it's really expensive to do. And typically it's extremely, extremely thin. So if you go and paint this, the likelihood of being able to sand off your paint and refinish this at a later date is very thin. You're probably going to ruin the veneer. And so whenever I find a piece that has something like this on it, I try to save as much of it as I can because they just don't make pieces like that anymore. And it's really rare. And so, hi Gloria, you're welcome. You're welcome for your fast ship on your order. I always try to get things out as fast as possible, so glad it made it to you. Yeah, so I always try to save this patterned wood if I can. But again, I have to do it in a way that makes sense. And so, you know, these places had that pretty patterned wood and the back, but the top looked terrible and it wasn't gonna make sense. Like if every place where there was this pretty patterned wood, if I kept it stained, it just wouldn't have made sense. There would have been like gigantic blocks of wood and then big blocks of paint. And so I had to think about, well, how am I gonna do it in a way where the design of the piece makes sense? And I guess that's what I'm trying to get at with this video, is think about your overall design of your furniture. So I decided to keep the drawers, all right? So I'm gonna slide this drawer in and let you guys just see. I couldn't keep all of this beautiful wood, but I could keep it here on the drawer fronts. Now, all I've done to this so far is I've cleaned it off with some TSP because they were a little dirty, and I'm gonna oil them with some hemp oil when I'm done, and they're going to look stunning. Let me grab, let's grab another one just so I can slide it in and you guys can see. So there's gonna be, when they're all in and there's a middle and there's another side, there's going to be some really pretty contrast with here. Now, since since I knew that I was going to have this warm wood, I had to come up with a color that was going to complement. And I know in the light you can't see this super well, but what this is this is Little Lamb from Fusion Mineral Paint. A really dark color would have worked if I wanted to do a dark green or a dark blue. I just wasn't feeling dark. Or a color that had just a little bit of warmth in it, like a warmer white or like a pure white, but y'all know I get tired of doing white. So I decided to do a gray, and Little Lamb has just enough of some warmth in it that it's gonna play off of these this warm tone on the drawer really well. Now the last thing I'm gonna do to help these drawer fronts go with the rest of the piece is I'm going to distress some. I'm not going to leave this finished super clean, because what I want to do is I want to pull out a little bit of the brown that's in all this detail, and it's going to make these drawers fit even more. There's going to be some brown around distressed, and that's going to tie in with these drawers. Now, I have a little bit of a pet peeve when it comes to distressing, and it's over distressing. It's distressing in places that don't make sense. So I like to try and keep, unless I'm working with milk paint and I just let it go chippy and crazy, that's kind of another thing. If I'm working with Fusion, I like to try and keep my distressing in the places where a piece is going to get natural wear. So that's along the edges. And then I usually try and distress any details, because here's what happens. When you distress the details, they pop, and all of a sudden you see them. You couldn't really see them before. So I'm going to kind of walk you guys through that here. Another tip when you're working with Fusion, if you want to distress it soon after that last coat is dry to the touch. So this last coat has been on here for about 30 minutes, and it's dry to the touch, and I'm going to start distressing it. If you let it sit for a long time, your Fusion is going to get rock hard, and it's going to take a lot of elbow grease. So this is just 220 sandpaper, and I'm just going to lightly rub it along the edges. Okay, and again, just kind of those places that make sense. Here along the edge. And then I'm gonna hit all of these places where there's some detail. I'm gonna get in there and try and highlight that detail, because then it starts kind of popping out. So there's a ton of detail on this dresser. This little trim here, this little rope trim, I wanna be sure and highlight so that people can see that. And then these decals, I'm just gonna go over these decals and hit the high points with my sandpaper, okay? Hi, Lori. Where are you watching from today, Lori? I'd love to hear where you're watching from. All right, I'm gonna take this out because I don't wanna accidentally sand these drawers. Again, I'm trying to keep that finish really nice and clean on those drawers. But I'm gonna just go over all of the corners and the edges. That's what I'm trying to hit. And then when I get to the top, I'm really gonna keep it just here on the edges. My pet peeve is kind of when you're looking at a top of a piece of furniture and there's just like random sand marks around it. That just doesn't necessarily make sense. So I try to keep, again, my distressing kind of on the edges where things are going to get just some natural wear. Hi, Maggie from Jacksonville, Florida. I bet it's still warm down there where you are too. It's October here in Texas, but we don't get cold. We don't get cold until like February here. So we're usually sweating when we trick or treat. All right, you guys see that? I'll hit these spots too. When I'm done, I'm probably gonna go over this whole thing with this 220, or I have some 320 grit sandpaper too, just to finish sand it all out. But again, what this is gonna do is it's just gonna tie in those drawers so that they just kind of fit with the design of the piece. Just hitting those high spots there. All right. Now let's slide this back in and see Well, hi, Brenda. Good to see you. Oh, that's the middle one. Let's tie this top one back in. All right, I know it's, let's see, let's scoot a little closer so you guys can see. Now, you've got these just little pops of wood, and it's just subtle enough that it's kind of tying in with the wood here on this. Okay? So, when it all comes together, that's just gonna help it make sense from a design standpoint. I know I've said that like 30 times in this video. So, I'm just gonna keep working on that here in my garage. My battery's dying, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. But just wanted to give you guys some of those tips. One, if you have a piece that has this beautiful patterned wood on it, to try and save some of it. And to save it in a way that makes sense with your design. So maybe the top, or maybe the drawers like this, or maybe some of your other panels. And then two, when you distress, to distress in a way where the distressing is natural. And to use the distressing to help kind of tie different colors together. So thanks for tuning in today. I know everybody's busy. Y'all had a lot that you could do, so I appreciate everybody that tuned in and watched. If you enjoyed this video and you found it helpful and you've got some friends that you think would enjoy it, I'd love for you to pass it along as always. But I'm gonna go finish working on this and I'll see you guys again soon, okay? Have a great day. Bye-bye.